Hey folks, I'm Sam. You are watching Doing It Wrong. Tonight I am smoking this Peterson Phoenix Bulldog. Sorry, can't remember the number. You get them from the Pipe Nook. Look at that. Isn't that a cool stem? In it, Blue Ridge Special from Watch City Cigar. That's not from the Pipe Nook. Red Virginias with some specially treated Latakia. Just a smidge, you probably wouldn't even notice it's there. Chad, over at Yardism, posed a question asking about balance. I'm assuming he's talking about life balance, not, like balancing a piece of wood. I can't even do that on your finger. Like that piece of wood, full disclosure, my life is at this time wildly out of balance. But I know that. And that's half the battle, the easy half. The hard half I still have to do. Balance, proportion, harmony, and moderation. What is the whole person? Body, mind, and spirit. Those three together make up each of us. Right? The body, our muscle, sinew, bone. The mind, not just our brains, but the thoughts, that ineffable characteristic, right? That us. And the spirit, our animation, our breath. Right? Spirit from pneuma, because from the ancient Israelite view, the thirst in the throat, the nefesh. So that's what makes us, us. Body, mind, spirit. All three together. A soul. So the daily pattern of life, it needs time for manual work, time for study, and a time for prayer. All three need an appropriate amount of the day carved out for them if we want a person to be healthy in body, in mind, and in spirit. Saint Benedict, also known as Benedict of Nursia, a monk who lived between 480 and 548 AD in what is today Italy. He wrote a document called the Rule of Benedict. It's a monastic rule that came to define monastic life throughout Western Europe, and it is still being lived to this day. A tiny pamphlet of wisdom distilled from the Bible and lived monastic experience. And that's the perspective I'm coming at this from. This little book, or in another translation, this little book, very old, came to define monastic life that carried Europe through the fall of Rome, right? Benedict was born at that time where Rome was falling into corruption. People looking to escape the decadence and kind of the disintegration of society. So he wrote his little rule. It didn't come fully formed out of his own thoughts. It's something that came out of monastic experience, and again, the monks distilled it from Scripture. How do we know that? Because he refers to the writings of John Cassian. This is the Institutes and the conferences, and he has his monks read that at nighttime reading during dinner and things like that, along with Scripture, of course. Why? Because the monks that came before them had wisdom to convey to them. And of course, Benedict distills it all down into the rule. What's the importance of the rule? Why am I even bringing it up? Because this little way of life defines how monks are to live their day, going through periods of prayer, study, manual work, and even some time for leisure. And it's been lived for over 1,500 years. Not always lived well, but lived. From those monasteries grew hospitals. Centers of learning became universities. They protected knowledge during the collapse of the Roman Empire. In many ways, Benedict can be said to be the father of Europe. By himself, no. Not saying that, but he created this foundation that retained knowledge. And wisdom. And the wisdom to know where your pipe tamper is when you need it. So what is balance? Balance is living a life where the needs of the body, right, are met. The needs of the mind, the needs of the spirit. Right? We need time to do manual tasks. Many of us these days, we work in offices and go neurotic from sitting in our little pens typing away. And we don't get the exercise we need. Right? We don't get that manual labor, that effort of the body. We're rushed about. We don't have time to pray or spend time meditating, contemplating, which I look at from the perspective of this Benedictine perspective. So we look about the world, and I think we can all kind of see it's not really, we're not all in balance as a people. We're kind of out of balance. 7-Up. Product placement. 7-Up Corporation, if you'd like to throw some money at me, I'm there. So, That's what balance is to me. Balance is living where those three things are met in the course, it's getting warm behind me, in the course of my life. And I can look at my life, and I look at my life a lot, and ask myself, where is my lighter? And ask myself, am I praying enough? Am I getting enough exercise? Am I working enough? Am I getting enough time to study? And so, for example, I can look at my own life right now, and I follow a particular prayer discipline that comes out of the Rule of Benedict, known as the Divine Office, Liturgy of the Hours. And it's prescribed, you're praying the Psalms and some canticles throughout the course of the day. Current practice is you've got, morning prayer, midday prayer, evening prayer, night prayer, a time called Office of Readings. And, if you're a monastic, you kind of follow all those. If you're not a full monastic, an oblate, something like that, a lay person, you might only get a couple of those hinge things like morning prayer, evening prayer, maybe night prayer. So my day is meant to incorporate that in it. And I can look at my day, and if I am not having those times of prayer, I know I'm out of balance. Just like I can look at the week, and if I don't have a certain amount of physical activity during that week, I'm out of balance. I can look across a month, a day, a week, whatever. If I'm not learning things, right, from Scripture, from things I need to know for my profession, I know I'm not getting that study time for the mind. And there's balances that go in each of those things, right? Studying can't just all be for work, right? You've got to sharpen the saw. You've got to study things that are about being human, right? Whether that's literature, novels, something like that, where a lot of knowledge, wisdoms, thoughts, things like that can be conveyed in a novel. The Brothers Karamazov, full of ideas. Even Lord of the Rings, full of things to think about. So, that's a study of sorts. So I've gone long, I'm rambling. But that's balance. Balance is making sure those needs of the person are met. Making sure that they're met in the right way. Not that one thing kind of takes over, right? If you're working all the time at your job and you're not getting any kind of physical activity, prayers or just that time to sit and stew, ruminate, is gone, right? I experience it as prayer. It's all focused on the bottom dollar and, providing value to your employer and, worky. If that's the way you're living, you're out of balance. That's the problem I'm having. And trying to detangle. And those sorts of imbalances, they don't usually happen kind of boom, you're out of balance. They creep in, right? It's little things happen like, I'm pretty busy, or I feel bleh, so I'm not going to exercise today, or I'm not going to do morning prayer. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes. And then a week passes, a month passes, a year passes. And then you look back and you're like, man, I'm screwed up. I'm not happy. I don't feel contentment. Why? Because you're out of balance. So that's it. That's some thoughts, some things to think about, stew about, wonder about. I hope you all are having a good weekend. I'm in Minnesota. I have a couple of feet of snow that's turned into frozen ice in my yard. I'm not happy about it. It should be warmer. The maple trees are starting to bud. I know this because my sinuses are telling me that. And I can look up at the trees and you can see the buds have broken through the bark and they're starting to bloom. They collect sap in starting in February. This is just wrong. So very wrong. And I hope you're not experiencing that wrongness. All right. Pack your pipe with something good. Enjoy it. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next time. Bye.